You're watching HCAM TV.
Good afternoon, Hopkinton, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. I'm your host, Mike Terosia, today with my co-host, Bob Hamilton. Bob's going to be joining me with our special guest, and very special guest in my heart, is Fire Chief Slaman. Chief, how we doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me to hang out with you.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you don't get to sleep much these days, correct?
No, it's been a little busy, but I'm gonna.
See, even the phone rings during the show. See how busy this guy is? It's fantastic.
That was the town manager I just hung up on, so you're pretty important.
Oh my goodness. Look at that. Now I know where I am in the scale. Jim, I want to raise. If you're listening, Jim, I want to raise.
He's not listening.
He's not listening. Thanks, Bob. All right, Chief. So here we are. We're into May 1st, May Day. What do we got going on? What do we got going on in town on your end?
Well, you know how deep we've been with the COVID for the last month or five, almost 6 weeks now with our response. Going into May, believe it or not, even though we're still at the peak right now and still responding, we just started to look at the planning for the recovery part. You know, there's a lot of unknowns still, so this is a real unique one for our whole group. It's planning recovery when you still don't even know what the journey is yet. I don't have to do that a lot normally. I usually have an idea what the future looks like when we're planning, but that's been my big unknown.
So with all the planning, now you're still meeting, of course, everyone knows you're the fire chief, but you were also the emergency management director, and you're also part of the COVID-19 task force as well. And you're probably doing 10 other jobs that I don't even know about. Huh? So with all this planning going on, what is, how can I say it? I mean, let me ask you this. We'll talk about what you have done. What have we done so far? You've separated your stations because of your staffing, but what else precautions have the fire department have taken in town?
Yeah, I think the big thing is to look at, just like we urge the community, we're all trying to do good practices, you know, washing our hands, making sure our environments are cleaner, honoring social distancing. So whether you do that at home, we have to do that exact same thing with the work environment. I think some of the added things to be able to work is we started off really early. The International Association of Fire Chiefs gave us some really good working templates right away for employee safety that started with an employee comes in, they do a questionnaire, they take their temperature, they identify if they've been around anybody sick, and we try to limit our exposures so that we can hold our response force intact as long as possible. One of the dangers for public safety was losing police, fire, communications officials to do their job, and whether we had enough people in the coop part of it in the background to keep filling in those slots. So we've done really well. We executed the plan right around the third week of March, and right now it's become more routine. I think that the downside to all of this is we're starting to see the illnesses and turn to associated deaths, and that's been a little bit rough on everybody.
Right.
Oh, you made me hang up with the town manager again. This is bad.
It's right. Well, I'm not going to hear the end of this one. I know it. So, and I know the precautions are there. I mean, I've even purposely stayed away from visiting the station. I mean, I only come in when called and so forth. But no public. Your inspections, home inspection. Let's talk about home inspections. We got a lot of people still selling their homes in town. How do they get their certificates for their smoke detectors? What happens? For the people who don't know, I know what happens, but tell people at home.
Yeah, so the state made some adjustments, and they actually changed the 26F legislation piece so that they're able to make continue with their sales contingent on inspections at a future date. So we have been able to do a couple inspections where homes have been vacated by the occupant for an extended period of time. So we know that, that time period of safeness has come in, and we've done a few that way. We've done a few virtual inspections to do certain things so we don't have to expose ourselves to a good intending person that might have COVID that doesn't realize it. So the nice thing I got to say about the state is they are trying to adapt all the systems so that you can have some functionality still.
Excellent. So today is the last day of burning season, right? We're no more outdoor burns. Have you noticed any increase in burning permits during the week because everyone's home now to do it instead of waiting for the weekends?
That's a really good question because I didn't check the data too much. It did not appear that the volume of burning was had increased at all, which is almost surprising. I don't know. We have had some lousy wet weather lately, so maybe that's part of it. The good news is we didn't have very few permit fire issues this year compared to other years. So even our call volume just in general has been down about 15%. So I don't know the story behind that yet, but I think people are being safer at home, which is nice.
Right.
We don't have as many of the car accidents because there's less people traveling and things like that. So that's been a positive.
Yes, I noticed too call volumes being down, and which brings me to another point that and while we're on the subject of open burning, can you please tell the people that it does end today and there's no chance of it being extended because of COVID? That's one thing that's not going to be changed.
So Mike's laughing a little bit. In the history of burning in my career here, 31 years, they have never extended burning. So no, they won't extend burning. It's the state that controls it, and they just don't extend it. So at 4 o'clock today, that'll be the end of the season.
Hey, I think Bob has a question. Bob?
Well, I noticed that at least down the center trail, the what do you call it? The brush fire truck with a crew of 3 or 4 took a trip down the center trail. And then I noticed they had to back all the way out. Is that standard practice or was that just a training exercise?
I'd like to say that I know everything that's going on, Bob, but you might have stumped me on this one. I know we did attend to a couple of weeks ago. We were down there with an outside fire, but if this was recent, I'm not sure what that call was.
Yeah, I think it was just the beginning of this week. Maybe they were going back to check on it because
Yeah,
there
good
was a
question.
fire.
Yeah.
There was a burning permit up on Main Street, but there may have been one further down in the trail that I didn't know about.
Yeah, the Senate Trail is designed to allow us access. I'm not going to tell you exactly how, but there's a few ways that we can get in there, and it is designed for a piece of brush equipment or our SUV to get in there or UTV to get in there if somebody gets injured.
Well, they did a good job getting in and out, so
Well, that's good to
I'm
hear. Like to
satisfied.
hear that. Yes.
And when Bob is satisfied, the whole town is happy. So that's good to know. So,
Hey, we're
Chief,
trying.
well, you brought up the subject of call volumes being reduced.
Yes.
Would you like to remind the people that originally, when this all started, if anyone who had symptoms and was curious, they were all informed to contact their primary care before
Sure.
just rushing to the ER.
Yep.
But now it seems like nobody wants to go to the hospital today, and no
Sure.
one wants to go via ambulance and so forth. And would you like to remind the people how the precautions are there to protect you and the first responders? That if there is an emergency, please call 911. Would you?
Yeah, the hospitals really made an effort through the governor's office in the last week or so to talk about underlying issues, and there is a real concern if you delay an underlying issue and it gets worse. The hospitals are open. The positive piece that we know now is the hospitals have plenty of capacity to serve the public. So those are two things that were a little more uncertain a month ago, and right now. If you ever have a question, the one thing I can tell you, it is not uncommon for us to go and assess somebody to see how they're doing. we would do that anytime. We did a couple yesterday where we visited people in town. There were some concerns. They ended up not going to the hospital, and that's good. We were able to kind of work with them and make sure that they had a good assessment. We can check vital signs. That's just part of community risk reduction, and we would do that anytime. So I think for the community member, don't hesitate. Realize that we're taking a lot of precautions that give us the greatest chance of sending a healthy firefighter to your house. We will then protect ourselves and protect you so that our assessment won't put you in any compromising position. And if we find that it would be good for you to go to the hospital, the positive piece of that is it might keep from having a worse case the day later that doesn't turn out as well.
Right. And I think what the DFS and the hospital group, I could just slipped my mind who they were,
Yep.
put out a
Yeah.
message that said, call 911. We
Yep.
take precautions to protect ourselves and the patients, and the hospitals are safe to go to. All these precautions. If you need help, call 911. And that's the point. In the beginning, we told them, don't call 911 because you think you got a runny nose and that's COVID. We're saying, if you are sick, if you are injured, call 911 and you'll be safe.
Yes. And I think I'll just give you a little more description. There has been the calls that we've had some very significant calls. So, while the volume is down some, we have had a structure fire last week. We did have a couple of really serious motor vehicle accidents. We've worked with some missing persons and some other manpower intensive calls. So it's not that the crews have done some very serious medical emergencies. So they're busy, and the intensity of the work has been there. It's just the volume is down slightly. And I think people are kind of taking care right now. That's the good thing. My worry is that some of this stuff builds up, and then when we go to kind of open up, that there'll be a little more increase. But again, don't hesitate to call.
Sure. I think Tom Nappy has a question. I don't know if it's something online or his own. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Chief. Yes, we have a YouTube question from our good friend John Ritz. Has the fire department had to respond to any fires, such as a structure fire or a car fire? And how do COVID protections affect those events, especially in those situations where it's tough to do the social distancing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. We did have a structure fire this week, and like I said, the design of our crews is to measure that they start healthy. We do try to keep from gathering close. There are some aspects of the job, like a structure fire, that can make it challenging to have the PPE on that helps with the COVID protection versus the PPE on that you need to deal with a hazardous environment, IDLH, or heat or smoke or whatever. The piece that I was able to observe when I got there is the crews did well. We go in, we knock the fire down quickly, and then when we start our interview process or conversations or less urgent work, we can go ahead and put a face mask on. We had the building department there, and he had his face mask on, which actually started cueing us good that we got to go to this other form of protection. A car fire isn't too bad because we don't have to do a lot of mingling with the public. Because for us, it's the less known factor is the public and what their condition is when we meet them or see them. Like I said, we do a lot of accountability on ourselves. But when we get to something like medical emergencies, that's where you see us have our PPE on for COVID from beginning to end. How'd I do answering that? All right, or?
Great job.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. So thank you, John Ritz. And again, anyone that's watching now, you can comment right on the YouTube channel, get your questions in, and we'll ask them while we have Chief Slaman here. We only have him left for another 15 minutes before. And I just got a text from Norman says, "Hurry up with the interview. I need to talk to him." So Chief, how has the members of the department been responding to the public's outpouring of goodwill towards the first responders. How's that? How's the morale? That's what I mean.
You know, that's where I was going to kind of go to. I got to give the crew a lot of credit from back in that third week in March when we were really starting the transition that the impact of this COVID was for real, and it was going to affect the public, and it was going to affect us in the workforce, and we needed to make some changes. From day one, the cooperation has been outstanding, and I think that we made some pretty dramatic changes. I changed the shift schedule. I opened up another building. I had a lot of separation where, we tend to be a family group that spends a lot of time close knit, tight together at the dinner table. And on day one, we had to really make some dramatic changes to heed the warnings of saving our crews, being able to not lose people that got sick by accident. So they've been really good with that. They actually right away recognize that this is a very serious event that we're all going through. And then the initiative started out well. That the Woodville station took a lot of work to get that really operable. And they the crews that are down there have spent a lot of time. They got it so it has a weight room set up in there so they can do some workouts.
Yeah, I saw the universal setup. That's great.
Yeah, they've got some food and the ability to cook down there that they've improved on. They've isolated the quarters so that they can sleep better and not have any contamination. And that all didn't come easy. It took us a week. We really started early before they were advisories, and we were ready to ramp up when this real recommendation of social distancing and isolation came in. They were already in full swing and it was working. And I think that saved us from, knock on wood, we are still at 0 COVID incidents. And that's not within our firefighters. And that's not an easy thing. Statewide, there's been a lot of firefighters that have been affected by the COVID, and we are at 0 still. I hate to jinx it, but I'm going to say
right.
it.
Being working for a different town and for the district as well, the 23 towns in the district, I get to see that smart board and surprised us. It's nice to see all the zeros on the COVID cases at work, but it's still shocking to see numbers show up anywhere else. And again, it is a lot of work. I go through it when I just came off my 24, and people want to come in the building and so forth. No, you stay there. And we had our pet. We still have regular visitors. You still have your building maintenance you have to take care of, and we screen them just like anybody else, and just like we do ourselves. So with that being said, you know how it's a shame, and I know a lot of people want to help out. What can visitors do? I know a lot of people send you food. Cornell's just last week sent you guys lunch and the police lunch, and then you have the cookie lady. You have people that like to bake you stuff, and you had to turn that stuff away. How else has the public been helping you? Have they been helping you with other things?
Yeah, I mean, there's the public health stuff. I think the call volume being down is almost a credit to them that they are doing the basics of social distancing and staying at home, and that I think that's a part of the call volume being down. There's still some thank yous that we've gotten, and we had yesterday the Legacy North neighborhood hired somebody to provide some food, and that was just a really nice off the cuff gesture. And not that we need a lot of that, but it's it was neat to see it just all of a sudden be a surprise that happened, and a nice thank you card. The positive thing is some of the new initiatives. The police department, Officer Phil, did the initiation of the birthday party runs, and now literally hours every day the crews are out and about, and that is the hot thing for us to get out in the community and see the kids and help kind of shake up the day in a really good way, and that helps my crew too. They feel good and connected to everybody, so that's a positive. I had to go ahead.
No, I says, and I know, and there's nothing like seeing a kid's eyes open up when they come to the station to visit, and you let them climb in the truck, and and they love it. And, and you can't do that. And just to see their faces when you do those drive-by parades,
Right.
it's great that you can still bring it. But you're also doing other things for children too.
Oh, you
You
set
know
me
what I'm
up. Go
talking?
ahead.
How about the reading to the children?
Oh yeah, I didn't get I didn't get involved in this year's reading because it actually happened right at the beginning of the COVID case. But virally, you might be talking about what they were doing with John Krause was doing some reading
The
out
videos,
on the
yes.
internet and YouTube readings. Or okay,
Yeah.
good, yeah, and I give them credit. That was all off the cuff, and there was a great response to that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And believe me, it's spread too because it went next door to Ashland and we're doing it. Matter of fact, the captain's picking out my book for next week.
Oh, very good. And I got to say, one of the other changes we did was, the family members tend to visit a lot here, just having you and the call firefighters come by,
Yep.
the family members of the firefighters. And that was one of the changes where I had to really do some restrictions to say, only in an emergency for the call firefighters to come in now, and the family members can't come in and see their, and their loved ones are here for 24 hours or more. And that was a big change. So getting involved with the community kind of helps take the edge off of that. Was real nice. And we're all kind of learning how to do this social media, Zoom meetings and stuff. I'm becoming an expert at it all of a sudden, not by choice either.
I was going to say two things that don't mix: Chief Slaman and technology. They just don't. But
Hey, be nice.
That's
I was impressed how well you were able to come to the meeting and everything. It's like I can see the things change. I know that only because you always ask me to help you with that stuff. So that's why. But I think Bob's got a question here. Bob, help me out.
Well,
Get me
thanks
out.
for letting me in, Mike. No, I did have a question. Mainly, it's about, I know being the chief of the fire department is an administrative mainly position, but it must be a lot more difficult now with the other meetings you have with the town managers and the town employees and other fire departments. So I think, can you tell me, is the administrative work more or less now that the COVID-19 has hit?
It has been a lot more administrative work, and I really enjoy the face-to-face. I see you at a lot of meetings, and I really enjoy the face-to-face and having some dialogue. I'm writing more emails now and trying to make sure we address issues and try to do the town business still. Our budget process was right in the middle. We're supposed to be going into town meeting. We're in a little vacuum now. Like, we're not sure where we're going. We had to evaluate many of how we're going to, whether we're going to be able to perform some of the capital projects in the future, whether there'll be any changes in FY 21 or 22 budgets. We're in the middle of a grant and hiring personnel. So all of that to keep it all moving in this, what I opened with, this unknown. I've never had so much that unknown in an incident in my life. So that really has made it be more time consuming.
That's good. So, speaking of your unknowns, now you have 4 new firefighters that are waiting to be trained at the Massachusetts Fire Academy.
Right.
What's any word, anything?
Oh, the fire academy is shut down. I actually spent a long time with the deputy yesterday. We're calling some communities, trying to see what we're going to do, because I'm nervous about a backlog. And these firefighters, they're running right now. The beauty is they were all hired as paramedics. They're in the ambulance.
Which you got lucky on, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Huge. It really helped with this whole COVID response. They're talented young paramedics. They know what they're doing. They just came out of training, so they're good. They have some experience, so we put them right to work. We're exploring, when I got hired in 89, there was a little surge like this, and we did the District 14 Fire Academy.
District 14, yeah.
Yeah, we're exploring whether we do that right now, just because we need to keep them moving. We need the fire part of it also, even though the medical's busy right now. You never know where each firefighter will be in a moment, and we need a certain number that are ready to do the next job. And I hope to get them in the queue somehow. And that's actually a part of them qualifying for the reimbursement of the grant. So
which I want to lead into is that grant process. where everyone's supposed to be trained, academy trained within a year. Um, has the feds taken that into consideration? Has that been talked about? How they're going to extend those grant issues?
I haven't heard a word on anything
Yeah.
there, and I do inquire. And I hate to wait for somebody to solve it for me, so I'm trying to figure out how I can train them and get them to qualify under the existing conditions. And you probably know we're talking about almost $500,000 in
Yeah.
funding that we would get over this 3-year period, and I don't want to waste a dollar of that. So any part of that that we can get, I want to get before somebody tells me I can't have it later.
Right. We're in the same boat next door. So, yes,
Yep.
as you know. So, other things that you had to plan for, which a lot of people don't understand, is what if your firefighters had came down with COVID, 1 or 5 or 10, whatever. They have to shelter in place or quarantine for a couple weeks.
Right.
They don't want to go home to their families if they're all well and they catch it on the job. Contingencies were made even for that, correct?
Yeah, and we had a few cases where we had employees that were sick, and then you get tested or assessed for COVID. The thing I found about our area, meaning Hopkinton or in this area, many of the folks have enough room where they live that they can potentially isolate. So versus maybe in the city, there's a lot more dense living and isolating becomes more difficult. So for us, so far, the option has been for people to isolate within their own houses, and they've been able to separate from their family. And then once with the finding is that, oh, it was just hay fever or the flu or something and not COVID, then they're okay. Having said that, there is the option right now, arrangements were made through the districts and the statewide to have the ability to stay at a hotel or some type of a place where you can isolate and stay away from your family. So they have those options. I just share with you in this area for many of the towns, people have been able to do that kind of on their own. And again, just thinking about the MEMA responses, we're always trying to see what we can do on our own. And then if we can't do it on our own, then we go get some help from somebody else, and you kind of keep following that process. The system isn't designed to take care of everybody and everything all the time. So good question.
And well, yeah, I just want people to know that, you're not just sending you guys home or just out to stay home. You are making provisions even further out to not just protect them, but to protect their families and loved ones. So,
and it's been great. I know you got the Board of Health on next, and Kasey has been working where she does the assessment so that we can make sure that we're talking to those employees and preparing them with their families and any type of connection to their families, and make sure there's been no spread or if anybody needs to be tested. So the evaluation process has been thorough. The part that really assisted is we got really good quick at maintaining our clean hands, our social distancing, wearing protection, and that made it so that worrying about these other things has not been the main problem. And I got to give them a lot of credit for pulling that off.
Well, that's awesome. And Chief, we're going to give you tons of credit for continuing to keep your men and women safe, to keeping everyone in town safe. You're doing a hell of a job. And I personally want to thank you. You know how I feel. And I thank you for taking your time out of this day to join us and to let the people know what's going on.
Well, thanks for you, Bob and Tom and everybody else there in the crew. I appreciate it. Thanks for the town of Hopkinton. The residents have been really cooperative with us and outstanding. We're enjoying having the group down in Woodville to serve that section. And I hope we all get through this much, much better and we find some recovery, something to normal soon. I'm still on the optimistic side. We're going to find normal somehow. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chief. Always the optimist. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right, Bob. Bob, thank you for joining me with that. I think we're going to move on to Matt Clack. Matt's going to give us an update of what's coming up. Tell us about Binge Hour. Tell us about upcoming week. We got a full slate of guests next week. and just wait for
And
Matt to come
Shaun's
up.
here. I'll be letting him into the meeting.
Excellent. So Matt, what's coming up on HCAM?
Well, we have a whole lot coming up on HCAM for the rest of today and coming next week. So as I've said, we have Friday night wake up call coming up tonight at 7 with Cheryl Peralt, who's going to have a couple of musicians on. On Sunday, we have the combined Christian Sunday service for anyone who wants to get in on that. And then on Monday, we have Gay Prokowski and Sabine St. Pierre on the Hangout Hour. On Tuesday, we have the brand new police chief, Joseph Bennett, and Tim Tagnacci. And then on Wednesday, we have Selectman John Catino and Cheryl Peralt on the show.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks a lot, Matt. And so we're just waiting for, I guess, we have Shaun's
here,
Looks
and
like.
Karen just entered the.
Casey's here. So Casey's here. And we're for Jim Cousins, our host, for this half hour. Shaun and Kasey, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, welcome back. We appreciate it. And we'll see if Jim is here.
Hello.
Hey, Jim, Shaun and Kasey are here and ready to go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hi, Shaun. Hi, Kasey.
Hi, guys.
How are you doing?
Good.
Doing fine. How are you doing today?
Well, it's another day.
Yes.
It's all one big long day.
Right. So actually, before we start talking about some of what your work does, I'm actually interested to know how the both of you are doing. I know that your jobs during this time are incredibly demanding, and I can only imagine the amount of time and energy that you're putting into this. So first off, I do appreciate the time that you're spending with us. And how are you guys doing?
You want to start, Case?
Yeah, we're doing good. I think that this has definitely been a marathon effort. Nobody expects that it's going to end anytime soon. We are definitely getting a ton of support from other departments in town, and just a lot of encouragement from the community. So I think that helps, keep us going, keep us in a good mood and in fighting order. So, we're managing through it. It's definitely been a challenge, but we've had some excellent support through it.
Yeah.
And how are your families? Everybody safe and well?
Yep, kids are safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm. And
Little
Shaun, what's your update?
crazy. The same. It's helped that we've had so much support. It's helped that it's like Kasey and I have had enough experience in our background that I think we were prepared for this as much as you can be prepared for, as Kasey said, this marathon. But we're doing well. We both have younger kids, so that's an interesting challenge in its own. And we've got good supportive spouses who are there for us. And but yeah, it's been a long 2.5 months.
51 days.
Yeah.
But nobody's counting, right?
Yeah.
So Shaun, I'm actually interested to know, you have both said that you've gotten a lot of support. Where do you get support? Where does your department get support from? Who is helping you?
The school nurses have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Were it not for them and their assistance with the contact tracing, we would be out of our minds. Kasey has a call with them weekly. They provide the follow-up that's necessary. You figure that each call that they're making could be, 5 to 20 minutes. And, depending on the number of cases that come in, that's a significant amount of work that they've taken from us and shouldered. And we're grateful for all of the work that they've helped us with. And then, we have good support staff back at the health department that have been, they've been able to maintain, a continuity of service, and that's allowed us to focus on this, and then occasionally some other emergency issues. So, and then the chief, I'd be remiss if I didn't, acknowledge the chief and his hospitality during this time.
Mm-hmm.
He's put us up with the fire department for, I'd say, maybe all but days of the 51 days we've been at this. So yeah, and then the community's done a great job just providing us, masks and other aid to support our work with different populations in the community.
Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you both could kind of review the state of the policies and the status of the curve, things like that. And the reason I'm asking that is because I was reading recently an article about how New York had been printing up flyers and posting flyers. And the first thing I said to myself is, wow, they're printing flyers in this day and age where we have TV and radio and the internet. And why are they printing out flyers to get this information out? But of course, thinking upon it, you want to really saturate your environment and your area of responsibility in any way possible. So I do think it is very valuable to kind of get a recap or an update on the status of things right now from you guys.
So Hopkinton is a little unique. Kasey and I were discussing this before we came on, where we have a significant number of medical staff in the town. So we anticipate that we will continue to see cases coming into town. And right now we're still seeing increases with work-related exposures. So whereas some communities might have plateaued and might be dropping off, we expect that we're going to see just a slow but steady rate until I would have to say into the future. I would say that the governor's actions have done a lot to help us control the spread of illness in the Commonwealth, and by extension throughout the town of Hopkinton. He's provided good, clear direction, and then we're not. I would say Kasey and I aren't shrinking flowers. If we're not happy with something, we're going out and attacking the regulatory agency, requesting answers, requesting follow-up, because it's in our nature to try to provide and bolster the type and quality of service that that the residents would demand here. So it's I don't know, Kasey, as a
So, yeah, I mean, to recap everything that we've done in the past couple weeks, because we've just been so busy with the number of cases that were coming in. So we haven't had a lot of time to say all the things that we were doing. So in the past couple weeks, what have we done? So we were able to donate masks to all the residents of Golden Pond and all the residents of Fairview early on. We also had information cards about how to wear a mask and how to properly care for a mask printed. We had brochures made additionally with more information to be handed out. And then earlier this week, I handed out them to the Housing Authority and the senior living housing. So I went door to door with a mask and gloves on myself and put them out for each resident so that seniors have access to a mask and more information. Like you said, it kind of takes a saturation of all this information, especially right now where things are very stressful and hectic. Like it's hard to take in a bunch of information all at once. Like when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're anxious and you're not able to fully comprehend everything that's coming at you. So to have it come in small bits and pieces that are easy to digest, we're just slowly still working on the education part, making and just reinforcing that education. Making sure people are hand washing, and not just hand washing, but using proper techniques to hand wash. And you're not just washing inside of your hands, you're supposed to wash the tops and your thumbs and for 20 seconds, and and like how to wear a mask, how to like what's the difference between social distancing and what we'll move into in the future, like when the lockdown does end, like physical distancing, like we will be allowed to be more social, and we're not limited, we won't be limited to just doing like essential functions, but we still will need to physically distance when we're doing those things. And just making sure that when we're trying to forward think and think about like what the world's going to look like and how we're going to enter the world in this lockdown version safely, so that we keep everyone prepared and healthy.
And
So-
the governor just passed or just noted that the state is going to implement a face covering requirement as of May 6th. So,
Oh,
and so one
Really?
of the things that we're
yeah.
working on is trying to, bring the community around to where that new reality is going to be, and how we're going to have to equip ourselves, how we're going to have to mentally prepare ourselves, so that if we're focused in the right direction, it should help with the implementation of these new policies that are rolled out as we're transitioning out of this.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to see that there have been a significant number of communities that have just tabled or have scheduled meetings to implement face covering requirements. Ours, we're actually have a meeting at 3:00 today to do that. But it's good to see that the government or the governor is kind of taking, I guess, taking some advice, taking some action. Most of his actions have been consistent with the way or the direction that these communities have been going, and that's one of the positive things, is we never find ourselves, I think, at at odds with the state government. So that's one of the, I guess, the benefits of having a good, strong leadership at the top.
Yeah. Mike, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, so let's think ahead. And when we all forget about COVID-19 and we forget about what we've just been through, do you see what we've learned from how to social distance, how to protect yourself? And so, do you see new regulations that you can say right now, yeah, this is going to be our future from here on out?
I mean, the governor just passing that the face like covering policy, like that's the future. Like, and that's how we get out of lockdown, and that's how we come out of it, and we don't immediately spike in cases. And sorry.
But no,
Okay.
I was,
in an office.
but I was reading it like when we forgot COVID-19. Here we are 2 years down the line. Do you see us taking some of the things that we're doing now going to be common practice? It's like,
I think
like-
so. I think then what people, instead of like I mean, during the flu season, right? Like if you go to like an urgent care, you would wear a mask, and like the healthcare provider knows that they should be wearing a mask and like how to protect themselves. But I think all this information now will just become normal practice for everyone, and I think people will come out of this with better hygiene and more awareness of like how to just protect themselves during all respiratory illnesses, not just during COVID-19. So I think that there will be definitely a better awareness of hygiene.
Yeah.
And then there will be some other regulatory changes with certain within certain agencies to help bolster maybe the care in
It'll be necessary.
facilities. And it's, and then we're also, they were discussing this morning how it's causing the state and federal governments to evaluate, things like minimum wage. Is that adequate? Do we have enough? How do we eliminate some of this food insecurity? How do we better bolster, our pantries and our the resources out there to make sure that should something like this happen again, we're better supporting those that are at most risk.
So I've been thinking that, as far as I know, this is unprecedented in the scale and the scope of it. And I'm just curious, with your knowledge, are there similarities to things in past? Are there because it just seems like, oh my goodness, if you think about this thing, you're going to catch it. It just seems so catchy, and it's like sneaking around for 6 days or at least whatever before you catch it. Has there been meaningful examples from the past that are helping guide you in facing this threat right now?
I mean, I think that like if you look at like the world's like communicable diseases and like outbreaks, like you look at them, right? So if you like, what's the last time we ever had to deal with something like this? In my lifetime, never. In your lifetime, probably never. Like, I mean, the only thing that they really compare it to is like the 1918 flu. If you think of things that are communicable diseases, so like the flu or smallpox or HIV, like they were really scary at first, and then they found medications or vaccines that and they did more studies, so they understood them better. So eventually, COVID will be less scary because it will understand it more. So it will be less deadly because we should hopefully have like a treatment for it, and it should be less contagious because we'll know how to catch it sooner. I think very early on in one of the things that helped us right in the beginning is what I thought was obvious. Like maybe it wasn't obvious to everybody, but like COVID isn't going to be this obvious cough and obvious fever and obvious shortness of breath. Like, if we think about our first like real cases of COVID in Massachusetts, it was the Biogen conference. And I mean, hopefully there wasn't somebody coughing in the middle of the room and everyone was shaking that person's hand. So that should tell you right there that this person was there and he was able to spread it to other people without them looking visibly ill. So, this knowledge of an asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic carrier like isn't new. Like you could have known that from the beginning. And so, I don't know. So I mean, from what I've read, and from common sense, I'm seeing that, it's highly, highly contagious before you have symptoms. And the symptoms when they start are really mild and tricky. For the majority of people that I talk to, their first couple of days were like, I just felt tired, but I thought it was the kids, or I was sore a little bit, but I thought it was my exercise, or I had a runny nose, but I thought it was allergies. Like nobody is like, oh my God, I knew this was COVID. I felt so sick and it was immediate and that it was obvious that it was going to be this. Like it's not like that at all. Eventually we will get better. Like this will get better. We just like, it should be similar to the flu in that like if you feel kind of sick, you would go to an urgent care and they should hopefully be able to do like a rapid test for COVID and like they do a rapid test of the flu and then send off like that and then treat you with medicine like a Tamiflu or something that might be able to treat COVID quickly so you can get rid of it quickly. But we're just not there yet. So only tools that we have right now are social distancing and physical distancing, wearing a mask, hand hygiene, not touching your face. Like those are the types of things that we have right now in our arsenal, but we will have more. We will have ways to fight this. Like this isn't always going to be this way. So there is the hope that this will end.
Yeah. Is there any indication? I know we're in very early stages of this, and I know that testing has not been sufficient. Is there any beginning or any signs that there's any idea about like how prevalent this is in the general population? I know some people may get it and not even know because they're not exhibiting the classic symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably a good majority of the population has it or has already had it and doesn't know it. Because for the majority of people, they're going to be just fine, and it will be very mild. But there's just that unfortunate group that will get it and that won't be fine.
Right.
So you mentioned the rapid testing. Is there rapid testing around here, and who can get rapidly tested?
It's available in locations, but there's still, my uncle and his family just got rapid tested. And I said, so what were your results? He's like, well, I, I know my son's results, but mine, they had to send it off for confirmation. So there are still issues with certain types of tests where, the reliability, there's still, I think, maybe a 10 to 20% unreliability factor, and they want that down to about 2 to 5 or 2 to 3. So, they developed these technologies, they put them on the market, they're refining them now. So I firmly believe that within the next month or so, they will have worked out some more kinks, and this rapid technology will become a lot more reliable, and we'll see it, maybe universally throughout smaller venues. We had explored purchasing kits so that we could test first responders and certain essential personnel. But the feedback I was getting for the hospitals was that if you were negative, they were going to have to do a backup test to confirm that. So that kind of, we need to be a little better, and I think we'll get there.
Right. Because can you imagine you get rapidly tested and you're told negative, but they're going to confirm, and then you don't take any precautions with your family, and next thing you know, 2 days later, oh yeah, you have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've seen instances of that in the community, and and talking to my friends that are first responders, I've seen it all happen, and it's and we're looking for that day when we can get beyond this, where we can get a rapid test and have confirmation, within 45 minutes.
Right. And you mentioned too the governor's order of wearing masks on May 6th. Can you explain that a little better for us?
Well, it just came up on my
Oh,
alert.
it just popped up. Yeah.
But what we're voting on this afternoon is implementation of a face covering order, and with the the purpose of this is again, to get people ready and thinking about how we're going to exit, what we're going to be needing to do to exit. And then it also addresses this asymptomatic spread that exists, where it's this face covering rule is designed to protect us from those that may be asymptomatic carriers. And if we are reducing that risk, and then we're still maintaining social distancing, we should continue to see a drop in cases, a drop in hospitalizations, and an overall improvement in the health of the community. And that's why we're rolling it out. And I think we're probably, there's a group of communities right now that I think there'll be about 50 plus communities that would have rolled this out by today. And then I think that's why, and when the governor was looking at this, realized that this is part of that strategy that they would need to put into play to get us to this next stage.
So quick question. I'm wondering what the argument against that would be. Now, I know you got to put them on, you got to have them, and it may hurt your ears a little bit, but what would be the argument against everybody doing this all the time?
Like, why should we?
No, like Shaun was saying how they're voting later on today on making this a
I think
rule.
that a lot of people have questions like, okay, so you want us to wear a mask, first of all, some people don't want to wear a mask because it's uncomfortable. It's not normal. They don't want to have to wear a mask. Like, how are they going to get their kids to wear a mask? What if they have asthma? What if wearing a mask makes them what if it makes it harder to breathe? And when do they have to wear it? And do they have to wear it in their car when they're alone? And do they have to wear it to the store? Do they have to wear it to like a grocery store, a pharmacy? Do they have to wear it at the state park? Like, it's like voting on it as for like our part of our vote is like when and where and how and who,
Yeah.
Right.
like all those questions. I mean, I think the answer should be everybody all the time, as long as it doesn't hurt you. But
Yeah.
I mean, but it is like some people don't agree with that. They think that it's burdensome, that they don't want to have to wear a mask. They're not sick. They shouldn't have to wear a mask because they don't feel sick. And I say that that's not fair because I'm pretty sure the person at the Biogen conference who got everyone else sick didn't feel sick. And, I mean, we're finding out a lot about asymptomatic carriers in nursing homes, that, you may not feel sick, but you're going to give it to somebody that will feel sick and can potentially die from it. And my argument to it is just why wouldn't you wear it if it would prevent unnecessary death?
Right. All right. So our time is getting short. I got a couple quick things. Kasey, you were talking about educating people on hand washing.
Yes.
And I have a wife who is in the medical field. And so when I come home from going to get groceries, that's basically what I go out for now. And I'm washing my hands. She says that I have to do like this to get under
So
the
you
nails.
wash them like this, then you have to wash the tops, you
Yeah.
have to do your thumbs, and then in the middle.
Okay.
Because when
in
you
middle
go
of
like
both
this,
hands.
like there's your inside of your hand goes in, so you're not really scrubbing that.
Oh, I see.
Just pretend you're on Grey's Anatomy and you're about to
Yes.
a surgery, something really important.
Right. Okay. And Shaun, I was wondering, you and your department get a lot of information and you're pushing out a lot of information. The updates are really great. I'm just curious, who do you interface with? Is it just the governor's office? Is there a bat cave somewhere where like all this stuff is coming out? How does that work?
We have on the local and regional level, the health directors meet on a weekly basis on a variety of topics. So, were this not happening, we'd be meeting anyways to discuss food inspection and mobile food truck management, vaping. So we already have that structure, and then we've just built upon that. So who's implementing food, face masks? Who's doing work with? I'm trying to think. Just how are you managing nursing homes? How are you managing town hall closures? So we're talking all the time. Then we have 2 to 3 calls a week with the Department of Public Health. And then, we have I have a good working relationship with the DPH, with to some extent with the elderly affairs group, with the DEP. So we're all out there. We have liaisons between DPH and the mayor's office, the governor's office. So we're in contact. I'm probably on the phone with a different agency 3 to 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we're getting the support we need, and I'm taking back, what I can and grabbing any grant opportunities or whatever,
Right.
to better support the community.
So listen, our time is dwindling away here, and it's very interesting for me to hear, and we kind of got a bit of the story of some process behind there. I would like to invite and encourage you both to come back on whatever regular basis that you may think would be good to just kind of review the daily updates that you're doing, the new information that has come out that week, because it's a great way for people to stay connected with that.
Right. And I agree. And I think we'd be more than happy to accommodate it.
All right.
And look forward to
Kasey,
it.
Thank you for being here, Kasey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Shaun.
Thank you for being here, Kasey.
You both have a great
Were it
day.
not for Kasey, I'd be in a bad way.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, thank you.
Bye,
You
guys.
too. Bye bye.